My name is John Smith, and what I'm about to share is the most unsettling experience I've ever had. Something I've never told anyone before. I didn't plan on stopping in Silver Ridge, and I still can't clearly explain how I ended up there. One minute I was driving through the Colorado mountains on a quiet stretch of highway, the kind people take to clear their heads, and the next, something felt off. My GPS had been glitching for the last hour, freezing, rerouting, then going completely blank like it had lost track of where I was. I remember reaching down to plug in my phone, my eyes off the road for maybe 2 seconds, and when I looked up, everything had changed. The road had narrowed without any warning, the smooth pavement turning into cracked, uneven asphalt with faded edges and no center lines. Trees crowded in close on both sides, tall and lifeless, their branches hanging low like they were leaning toward the road. I slowed down, instinctively checking my mirrors, but there was nothing behind me. No headlights, no distant cars, just darkness swallowing the road I'd come from. Up ahead, a wooden sign came into view, tilted at an angle like it had been hit years ago and never fixed. "Welcome to Silver Ridge." The words weren't painted. They were carved deep into the wood, jagged and rough, like someone had done it in a rush. Something about the way it looked made my stomach tighten. It didn't feel like a welcome. It felt like a warning I was too late to understand. I kept driving, telling myself I'd find a place to turn around, but the road carried me straight into a town that didn't look abandoned in the way you'd expect. It looked paused, like life had been cut off mid-motion. Old trucks sat crooked in the street, one with its driver's side door still open, as if someone had stepped out and never came back. A rusted swing creaked faintly on a front porch, even though the air was still. I parked near a small general store with a cracked glass front and a faded sign hanging by one chain, figuring I'd get out, stretch, and maybe get my bearings. The moment I stepped out of the car, the silence hit me hard. Not peaceful silence, heavy, unnatural, like all sound had been drained out of the place. Even my footsteps felt too loud. I scanned the street, trying to shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, and that's when I noticed something across the road. Footprints. Barefoot, deep impressions pressed into the dirt, leading straight up to a small house with a sagging porch and a door slightly ajar. They looked fresh, sharp edges, no signs of wind or time softening them. I walked closer without thinking, my eyes following each step they marked. They went all the way to the doorway and stopped. No second set, no prints leading away. Just a single path going in, like whoever made them had never come back out. And standing there, staring at that empty doorway, I got this quiet, creeping feeling that I hadn't just found the town. It had been waiting for me to notice it. I stayed in the car longer than I should have, just sitting there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring across the empty street at that half-open door. My mind kept trying to turn it into something normal. An abandoned house, a broken latch, maybe a homeless squatter situation. But nothing about Silver Ridge felt normal enough for any of those answers to hold. The longer I watched, the more the silence started to feel intentional, like the town wasn't just quiet, but actively withholding sound. Even the wind had stopped moving through the trees. My phone was still useless. No signal, no emergency bars, nothing. And the GPS app refused to load anything beyond a blank grid. I told myself I'd just rest for a bit, maybe wait until I felt less shaken before deciding whether to explore or leave. I locked the doors again, pulled my seat back, and tried to settle into a position that felt even slightly comfortable. The engine had gone fully cold by then, and without it running, the quiet inside the car became almost unbearable. Every small noise, my jacket shifting, my breathing, the faint creak of the frame as I adjusted, felt amplified, like the car itself was listening. I kept my eyes on the house across the street until they started to blur, and I remember thinking just for a second that I might have been imagining the whole thing. I don't know exactly when I drifted, but it wasn't deep sleep. More like a slip in awareness, like my mind briefly let go. That's when I heard it. A dragging sound, slow and uneven, moving somewhere just outside the car. It didn't sound far away either. It sounded close enough that I instinctively stopped breathing. The sound stopped right beside my driver's door. For a moment, there was nothing at all. No movement, no wind, no distant noise from anywhere beyond the town. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps on the window, spaced too evenly to feel accidental. My chest tightened immediately. I turned my head slowly, bracing for whatever I might see, expecting a person, maybe someone confused or lost. Instead, there was a shape standing right outside the glass. It was tall, uncomfortably tall, and slightly hunched forward, as if its posture didn't belong to its body. The edges of it didn't resolve properly in the dark, like my eyes couldn't focus on it no matter how hard I tried. No face, no details, just a presence where a person should have been. I didn't move. I didn't speak. After a few seconds, the tapping came again, but this time on the passenger side. I turned so fast my shoulder hit the seat, and there it was again, already there, just as close, just as still. My mind struggled to accept what I was seeing, because there had been no time for anything to walk around the car. When I snapped my head back toward the driver's side, it was empty. Both sides were empty now. But the glass told a different story. Long streaks had appeared across both windows, smeared downward like something had pressed against them with force and slowly dragged away. They weren't fingerprints. They were too wide, too uneven, almost like something had tried to grip the entire surface at once. I stayed frozen, realizing the worst part wasn't that something had been outside the car. It was that whatever it was didn't need to be seen clearly to know exactly where I was sitting. I didn't sleep after that. I just sat there in the driver's seat with my back pressed tight against it, staring through the windshield at the empty street and forcing myself to stay alert. Every few minutes, I'd check the mirrors, like something might suddenly appear behind me, even though I knew that wouldn't help. The marks on the windows were still there, faint now in the dim glow from the dashboard lights, like they were settling into the glass instead of fading away. I kept replaying what I saw outside, trying to find a gap in it, a moment where it could have been explained away. An animal, a shadow, anything. But the problem was how precise it felt, the timing, the way it responded without sound, the way it was already there before I could fully react. When the sky finally started to lighten a little, that weak gray blue you get right before sunrise in the mountains, I told myself I couldn't just sit there forever. I needed answers, or at least a way out. I reached for the ignition, hoping the car would come back to life like it was just a bad dream. It didn't even try. No click, no warning lights, nothing. Just dead silence in every direction, both inside and outside the car. That's when I heard it again, the dragging sound. But this time, it wasn't close to the car. It was across the street, coming from that house with the open door. In daylight, it didn't look less disturbing. It just looked more real, like I couldn't blame darkness for anything anymore. The sound wasn't loud, but it was steady, like something heavy was being pulled across wood and dirt at a slow pace, stopping every few seconds as if it had to gather strength to continue. I sat there for a long moment, debating whether I was losing my mind or just delaying the inevitable. But the silence around me felt worse than the sound itself. Eventually, I grabbed the tire iron from the trunk and stepped out. The air outside felt wrong in a way I can't fully explain. Cool, but stale, like it hadn't moved in hours. Even the street looked unchanged, frozen in the same position I'd seen it the night before, like nothing here ever shifted unless I was watching it directly. The house door was still slightly open, but now it didn't look like an accident. It looked like it was meant to stay that way. I pushed it open slowly and stepped inside, immediately hit by a smell that made my stomach turn, something like old wood soaked in something metallic and sour. The floorboards creaked under my weight, and I noticed deep grooves carved into them, running in uneven lines from one room to another. Not scratches. These were marks made by something being dragged repeatedly, as if the same object had been pulled through here over and over again. The walls were worse, covered in layered scratches, so many that the wood beneath was barely visible in places. But what made my chest tighten were the words carved between them. Short phrases repeated in different handwriting, like multiple people had tried to leave warnings in a hurry. Don't sleep. It listens when you rest. It learns your shape. The further I went in, the harder it became to convince myself I should be there at all. And then I heard breathing, not mine. Low, uneven, somewhere behind me in the hallway I had just walked through. I didn't turn immediately. I think part of me already knew that whatever was standing there wasn't going to feel like a normal person when I finally saw it. I didn't turn around right away. I just stood there in that hallway, listening to the breathing behind me settle into a slow, uneven rhythm. Like whatever was there had been waiting a long time and didn't feel rushed anymore. The house felt tighter than it had when I first entered it, like the walls had shifted closer without me noticing. My grip on the tire iron tightened so hard my hands started to ache. I forced myself to take one step forward instead of back. Not because I felt brave, but because I realized backing up might be exactly what it wanted. The breathing didn't follow immediately. It stayed where it was, just behind me, close enough that I could feel the slight movement of air, but not close enough to touch. Then I heard something else. Soft shuffling, like bare feet adjusting on wood. I finally turned. The thing standing in the hallway didn't match anything my brain wanted to classify. It wasn't just thin. It looked like it had been stretched slightly too far, like the proportions were correct in theory, but wrong in execution. Its skin had a dull, waxy tone, not pale in a normal way, but faded, like color had been drained out of it over time. Its eyes were open too wide, glossy and unblinking, reflecting the dim light from the window behind me. But what made my stomach drop wasn't its appearance, it was the stitches. Thick black thread ran across its mouth, pulling the lips together in a rough line that looked less like medical work and more like something done in a hurry without concern for precision. It raised one hand slowly, not aggressively, just deliberately, and pointed deeper into the house. Then it shook its head, hard and repeated, like it couldn't decide whether I should go or not. I took a step back without thinking, and the moment I did, it reacted. Not by moving toward me, but by tilting its head slightly, as if it had expected that exact response. I backed out of the hallway into the main room, and that's when I noticed something that made everything feel worse. The dragging marks on the floor didn't stop at the hallway. They continued behind furniture, around corners, like something had been pulled through this house so many times that it had worn a permanent path into the wood. The breathing behind me was gone now, replaced by silence that felt even heavier than before. I turned my head slightly, expecting the stitched figure to still be there, but the hallway was empty. That should have been a relief, but it wasn't. Because now I couldn't tell where it had gone, or if it had ever been limited to one position in the first place. My phone buzzed suddenly in my pocket, so sharp and unexpected that I nearly dropped the tire iron. The screen lit up with no signal, but there was a notification anyway. No number, no contact name, just a single line of text. My name. John. That was it. No message, no context. Just my name appearing on a phone that shouldn't have been able to receive anything. And as I stood there staring at it, I realized something worse. There was no way for anyone in this town to know who I was, unless whatever was here had already learned it from somewhere I couldn't see. The footsteps outside the church kept circling, slow and patient, like whatever was out there had decided it didn't need to rush anymore. Inside, nobody moved. Nobody even flinched when the wood creaked under pressure from the outside. It wasn't like waiting for an attack. It was like waiting for a pattern to complete itself. One of the men finally spoke, barely above a whisper, telling me something I didn't fully understand at first. The town didn't just trap people physically, it conditioned them. The longer you stayed awake here, the more your mind started to sync with it. Not possession, not spirits, something worse and more subtle. Like your perception slowly getting rewritten until you stopped noticing what didn't belong to you anymore. I felt it then, in a way I can't fully explain. My thoughts were slower than they should have been. My memory of the past night felt uneven, like certain parts had been recorded but not experienced cleanly. I looked down at my hands and noticed something small but wrong. Tiny ink smudges on my fingertips, like I'd been writing without realizing it. That's when I saw the notebook again. It was still open on the bench. New lines had appeared since I last looked at it. Not random words, instructions, directions, a route, a way out of Silver Ridge. I hadn't written them consciously, but my handwriting was unmistakable. The man closest to me noticed what I was looking at and said quietly, "Sometimes it lets you leave pieces behind if it thinks you'll come back wrong." That sentence stuck in my head because it didn't sound like hope. It sounded like probability. Outside, the footsteps suddenly stopped. Complete silence followed, worse than movement. One of the others whispered that when it gets quiet like that, it means it's recalculating. I didn't wait for another explanation. I grabbed the notebook and ran. The moment I stepped outside, the air felt different. Not safe, just unfamiliar enough to feel like I was no longer fully inside whatever loop I had been in. The town didn't stop me. That was the strangest part. No chasing, no sudden movement, just stillness, like it was watching to see if I would follow the correct pattern out. I ran the path the notebook showed me, past streets I hadn't noticed before, through angles of the town that didn't line up the same way twice. And somewhere in that confusion, I realized something important. Silver Ridge didn't trap people by walls or roads. It trapped them by making them believe there was no exit unless it allowed one. I found the old highway just as the sky started to brighten. No dramatic border, no breaking point, just a shift in the world's consistency, like stepping out of a bad signal into clarity. I didn't stop driving for miles, even after my phone regained signal. Even after I passed towns that made sense again, I kept waiting for something to feel wrong. It never did. But the notebook is still on the passenger seat, and sometimes, when I'm tired and the road gets too quiet, I catch myself checking the mirrors. Not because I think something is behind me, but because I'm not fully sure I left it there.